Power doesn't disappear overnight. It fades, quietly, gradually, almost invisibly, until one day, what once shaped the world can barely shape itself. And that's the story most people misunderstand. They see the fall, but they never study the rise. Because if you don't understand what built power, you'll never understand why it collapsed. There was a time when Muslim power wasn't questioned. It wasn't debated. It was obvious, not just in military strength, but in influence, in knowledge, in leadership. A civilization that didn't follow the world. It defined it. But here's what made that possible. It wasn't resources. It wasn't geography. It was alignment, clear belief, clear purpose, clear direction. Because when belief becomes action, power follows. And that's exactly what happened. Faith wasn't separate from life. It guided it. Every decision, every system, every structure. There was discipline, not occasional, consistent. There was knowledge, not passive, applied. There was leadership, not reactive, intentional. And when those elements combine, you don't just grow, you lead. But growth wasn't random. It was built on systems, on habits, on a mindset that valued responsibility over comfort. And that's where the difference was, because while others chased expansion, they built foundations, and strong foundations create lasting power. But here's the turning point most people ignore. Nothing external changed first. The shift was internal, slow, subtle, but powerful. Belief remained, but action weakened. Discipline became inconsistent. Knowledge became informational, not transformational. And once that gap appears, decline begins. Because power is not maintained by history. It's maintained by behavior, and behavior started to shift. Comfort increased, urgency decreased, focus scattered, and over time, the system that once produced strength stopped being followed, not rejected, ignored. And that's more dangerous, because when you reject something, you're aware of it. But when you ignore it, you drift without realizing it, and drift leads to loss of direction. Now add external pressure, conflicts, invasions, competition, and suddenly a weakened system faces strong resistance. And that's when collapse becomes visible. But by that point, it's already too late, because collapse is not the cause. It's the result of years of misalignment, of neglected discipline, of lost clarity. And that's why it feels sudden, but it never is. Now, here's the part most people avoid. The conditions that built power still exist. The same principles, the same guidance, the same blueprint. Nothing was removed, but everything depends on application. Because knowing what works is not enough. You have to live it consistently. And that's where the gap is today. Access to knowledge, but lack of implementation. Awareness, but no urgency. Potential, but no discipline. And that combination never creates power. So the real question is not, why did power collapse? The real question is, why wasn't it sustained? Because sustaining power requires something most people resist. Consistency, long-term discipline, focus, even when it's uncomfortable. And without that, nothing lasts. Not empires, not influence, not impact. So, what does that mean for you? It means the pattern is still active in your life, your habits, your direction. You either build with intention or drift without realizing it. You either stay aligned or slowly lose what you had, because the same principles apply at every level. And once you understand that, you stop looking at history as something distant and start seeing it as a mirror, a warning, and an opportunity, because the rise is still possible, but only if the behavior that created it returns. If this changed your perspective, subscribe, because the next video might change how you see everything.